Welcome to The Lifestyle Herbalist, the podcast where holistic wellness meets everyday living. I'm your host, Dabney Vaccaro, registered dental hygienist, clinical herbalist, and certified health coach. We're passionate about bridging the gap between conventional medicine and plant-powered healing. Whether we're diving into oral microbiome health, the power of adaptogens, or just simple steps for vibrant living, our goal is to help you feel empowered with practical science-backed and earth-grown solutions. So grab your favorite cup of tea as we dive into this episode. Have you ever woken up with a dry cottonmouth feeling or found yourself breathing through your mouth during a tough workout? Well, it can seem harmless, but what if I told you this simple act is quietly disrupting the critical ecosystem within you with the ripple effects that reach far beyond your mouth? Hi, I'm Dabney Vaccaro. I am a registered dental hygienist, herbalist, and health coach. And today I wanted to talk to you about your microbiome, and not only in your oral health, but your gut health, and really how mouth breathing is really creating havoc in your system. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about oral and gut microbiome. And really, it's the garden that we really need to attend every day. It needs a specific environment. Just like a garden needs sunshine and rain, your gut and your oral microbiome, they need certain nourishments and certain conditions in order to thrive as well. Otherwise, weeds can take over, things can die, and then things just aren't healthy and it doesn't thrive. So I want to talk to you today about the oral systemic link and the connection between our mouth health and how it affects our whole body health. So, breathing 101, nose versus mouth. So, we are meant to be nasal breathers. Why? Well, nose hairs and mucus trap dust, allergens, and pathogens. So, it works as a great filtration system, and it's our first line of defense for our body to keep out those pathogens that can harm us. It's also a humidifier. So our nasal sinuses and passages, it moistens the dry air and it protects our delicate lung tissue. It also warms the air. So bringing cold air into the body really reduces the temperature and our body can't use it. That's why our body tries so hard to stay at a certain temperature. Certain things need a certain environment. Then there's also nitric oxide production. I've briefly talked about this before on this podcast. This is a crucial point. Our nasal sinuses produce nitric oxide, as does the back of the tongue, or it converts it, I should say. But nitric oxide production increases the oxygen circulation in the blood. It's not an antimicrobial agent, which means it helps to kill the pathogens in our airway. And mouth breathing bypasses this entire system. So you get no benefit from any of these things if you're mouth breathing. The problem is that it delivers cold, dry, unfiltered air directly into the throat and lungs. Now, I know mouth breathing can be a common thing if there's allergies or a cold or something going on that clogs up the nose and is very difficult to breathe. I understand breathing is necessary for life. However, sometimes when that is more of an acute thing, I understand. But what happens is sometimes it becomes chronic. So people who have allergies for a period of time become mouth breathers, but then after the nasal passage is clear, mouth breathing continues even though the nose is clear. So the first thing is just the awareness. But it has a domino effect. Mouth breathing really has a negative effect on the oral microbiome. So what is oral microbiome? So it is a very diverse community of microbes. It's not just bacteria. It's viruses, fungi, and other species that live in our oral microbiome. And it thrives in a specific environment. Saliva is our most valuable player in our oral health. This week, I had the opportunity to place sealants. Sealants is a protective coating that goes over top of a molar when it first erupts into the mouth, to protect those grooves of a new tooth from becoming decayed. So I was placing sealants on this 15-year-old young man, and I kept thinking, wow, he has such rich saliva. Like, there was such an abundance of saliva. I actually had to call an assistant to come in and help me isolate the area so that I could get the sealant placed properly. But as we get older, we tend to become drier, and that salivary production whittles down as well, increasing chances for cavities, microbiome disruption, and oral disease. But our saliva is a natural cleanser. It's constantly washing away food particles. It contains antimicrobial enzymes, and it buffers to neutralize acids. So every time we have something to eat, enzymes are released. It's our first line with digestion. Enzymes are released in our saliva to help us to break down our food. The teeth mash the food, and then it becomes a bolus, and then the tongue throws it down into the belly. And then that's where the belly starts to go to work and starts to break down that bolus and extrapolate the nutrients as it moves down through the digestive system. However, mouth breathing evaporates our saliva, and it creates a dry, acidic environment. And that acidity is what leads to the death of many of our good bacteria. But unfortunately, the bad bacteria thrive. They love the acidic environment. And the good oxygen-loving, what we call aerobic bacteria, they struggle without moisture. And the anaerobic bacteria, which are the bad guys, like I said, they flourish. So the consequences with mouth breathing is that, well, the first sign typically is halitosis, or bad breath. It's a classic sign. Anaerobic bacteria produces a sulfur compounds. It really doesn't smell good. Now, that's different from decay and enamel erosion. Sometimes when people have an abundance of decay, that's a different kind of smell, and it's just different because of the rotting of the teeth. But tooth decay and enamel erosion is also a negative effect of mouth breathing because, again, that saliva is not present, it's dry. And so there's not remineralization of the teeth, and the enamel breaks down. Acid erodes the enamel, and it leads to cavities. Then there's the bad bacteria that produce inflamed gums. It leads to redness, bleeding, and eventually breakdown of those structures holding the teeth in place, known as periodontal disease. The teeth could become loose, and over time, you can actually lose your teeth. There is the gut connection, which I'm finding more and more evidence in my own clinical experience. Following my patients for the last 20 some years, I have the privilege of seeing their health histories, knowing that they have had problems with diverticulitis or Crohn's disease or celiac disease. And these gut problems, they do have an effect on our overall health, our microbiome, and also our brain health. But the gut microbiome is really, really important in our digestion. It helps us to be able to extrapolate the nutrients that we need in our body. Without being able to absorb the minerals and the vitamins, the food moves through and we're not getting the nutrition. And over time, our body, like our garden, starts to crumble away and starts to die off. So how the problem in the mouth becomes a problem in the gut? Well, we are constantly swallowing, right? We swallow about 1 liter of saliva a day. And if the saliva is loaded with harmful inflammatory microbes, well, that's an imbalanced oral microbiome that then leads to an imbalance in our gut because it's all going right into our gut. This daily influx of bad bacteria and microbes can disrupt the delicate balance of the gut microbiome. And that's the concept known as gut dysbiosis. The inflammatory response starts in the gums, and it's from not cleaning well, but also from mouth breathing, but also it can be hormonal responses, stress responses, all of these different things. But the inflammation starts in the gums. It increases the systemic body-wide inflammation, and it can compromise the gut lining and contribute to conditions like leaky gut. So, mouth breathing is a primary driver of sleep apnea, snoring, and it leads to poor sleep quality and daytime fatigue. Chronic mouth breathing can actually alter facial development, leading to elongated faces, gummy smiles, and orthodontic issues. And there is less efficient oxygen uptake due to lack of nitric oxygen. When we are mouth breathing at nighttime, our snoring, it actually feeds that bad bacteria. I'm doing more and more research about salivary testing, and I'm coming out to find out that there are certain strains of bacteria that when the tests come back and certain strains of bacteria are high, it's a sign that there is a sleep apnea issue or a sleep disturbance issue, because that mouth breathing feeds that red complex, which is very virulent and aggressive and oftentimes are untreatable in the dental office and must be prescribed things like antibiotics in order to get this red complex to behave itself. But getting back to mouth breathing, when we're mouth breathing, our airway is our throat. And as we get older, our tissues are not quite as firm. And so what happens is, as we relax in the evening, going to sleep, our tongue falls back in the throat. Because our throat is our airway, we can no longer breathe, which wakes us up. Those are the folks who typically end up with a CPAP machine. But there's problems with that too. I have encountered many patients who have really had trouble getting used to their CPAP machine. And that's a whole nother episode altogether. So the idea is that you can change yourself to become a nasal breather rather than continuing to be a mouth breather. And it can take some work, but there are some aids out there to help you be able to keep your lips sealed. Working with a myofunctional therapist is one way to help to navigate those waters. Certainly, I am a good resource to ask about that as well. But you want to be able to breathe from your nose, number one. So if there's a deviated septum or you have some chronic issue that and does not enable you to breathe from your nose, certainly you don't want to start taping your lips or using any kind of these myotapes and things like that. So you want to make sure that you can breathe appropriately. But even in children who don't sleep well, a lot of times children are deemed having ADHD when actually they're just mouth breathers who haven't slept well. So they're just really active so that they stay awake. And if you've ever noticed yourself, if you're a mouth breather, you don't get as much oxygen to your brain at nighttime when you're sleeping. 18% less oxygen to your brain when you're mouth breathing versus when you nasal breathe. So in the morning when you wake up and you're feeling groggy, well, that's probably why. You just haven't rested well. And then in the afternoon, when you start to really fall, that afternoon crash, like you really feel it a lot more when you're not sleeping well and getting all that oxygen to your brain. So children actually, they just get real active and they try to just move around a lot so that they don't get tired and fall asleep. So what are some solutions and how do you reclaim your nasal breathing? Well, the first step is to first notice it. You have to be aware that you're even doing it. And if it's during the day while you're working, watching TV, or exercising, stop, close your lips, and start breathing from your nose. It's an awareness. If you have an underlying cause, you need to address it. Go see your doctor like an ENT and rule out and treat a physical obstruction like a deviated septum, nasal polyps, or even chronic allergies and sinusitis. And be conscientious about nasal breathing. Make it a habit during the day. Breathing exercises like diaphragmatic breathing or box breathing can be very helpful. Sometimes people use those nasal strips or dilators that can help open nasal passages at night. And mouth taping, I have told many patients to try mouth taping. It's easy and it's inexpensive. I know this can be controversial, but you want to make sure that you can actually breathe from your nose and that you don't have a physical constraint before you do this. Now, I will say, I ask my patients to go get the paper tape, which is in the Band-Aid aisle. So it's super light. And if you put it on your lips and pull your lips apart, it comes off. Like it's not that strong of a tape. And that's what you want, something light. And basically it is just to encourage your lips to stay together. And for the first week or two, you'll wake up in the morning and the tape won't be on your lips. You probably have opened during the night. You'll find the tape in your hair, on the pillowcase, on your finger, who knows, but it probably won't be on your lips. But over time, if you're patient enough, then your lips will stay together and you'll wake up with that tape on your lips. And my patients who have been successful have told me that it has changed their life. They're feeling more energetic and they're sleeping better and they're not driving their bed partner crazy because they're no longer snoring. So, support your microbiome. You want to stay hydrated. You want to drink plenty of water throughout the day. You want to clean your teeth really well. Consider a probiotic lozenge or a probiotic spray, and you want to reseed that good bacteria. I am a big advocate for oral probiotics. BioGaia is one in particular that I have been recommending a lot to my patients, and I'll put that link in the show notes. It's available at CVS. You can get them on auto delivery through Amazon and different places like that. And you also want to make sure that your lifestyle is in the right lane. So avoiding sugar, because that feeds the bacteria. And what happens is that when you're feeding that bad bacteria, the good guys just don't have what they need. And so you end up with the more destructive microbiome and not the good stuff. And eating fermented foods is another way to get those good, nourishing probiotics into your oral microbiome, but also your gut as well. The other thing I want to mention is the overuse of oral microbial rinses. We are a society who has become so germophobic that we use hand sanitizers, we are using antimicrobials every single time we brush, we're using anti-cavity, anti-everything. And so what we're doing is we're wrecking our whole body system. Like, we need to have those good bacteria. It really helps us. That vitamin K, it's a bacteria and it helps us with the absorption of our food. And if we don't have bacteria, the good guys, we're in a heap of trouble. And what those oral rinses are doing is creating a dysbiosis. As I'm learning more and more about the microbiome and the different profiles of bacteria in our mouth, there are two complexes, red complexes. When they're together, it's considered a superbug. And every time a mouth rinse is used, an antimicrobial rinse, and you're thinking you're doing the right thing, you're actually feeding those guys. They're actually getting a good dose of food because they become resistant to that antimicrobial rinse. So less is more. All you need to do is brush your teeth, clean in between your teeth, throw out your rinses. They are creating a dysbiosis in your microbiome, and because you're swallowing the saliva and the residual things, it's creating a dysbiosis in your gut as well. So let's recap. So your nose is for breathing, your mouth is for eating. Dry mouth disrupts the oral microbiome. It leads to cavities and gum disease. And by swallowing our saliva, it disrupts our gut microbiome. Breathing is the most fundamental thing we do. And by making the simple switch back to how our bodies were designed, which is breathing from our nose, we can support our health from the top down. It creates a positive ripple effect from our mouth to our gut and throughout our entire body. So pay attention to your breathing this week, and if you suspect a physical issue, see an ENT. If you or somebody you know if you've noticed that they're a mouth breather, if they're walking around with their lips apart, likely they're a mouth breather, send them this episode. Let me know what you've done in your own health to help you become a nasal breather. And if you have a question, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to discuss this issue further. If you like to have a consult, I'm happy to consult with you. So until next time, breathe well.